Hi everyone, welcome to this week's live stream. If you haven't attended these before, I normally do them every Friday at 2:30. We'll have a look at some of the major events due out next week for markets. Then we'll jump on the charts, take a look at things in a bit more detail on indices, currencies, oil, gold, Bitcoin, the usual mix of stuff. And if there's anything you want looking at, once we've done that list, if you want to put it in the comments, I can see already someone's asked for Marks and Spencer's share price. If there's anything you want looking at, put it in the comments and we'll take a look at that after. But I'm a bit late today, so let's get cracking. Just do a risk warning first. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of a solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Right, so next week, there's quite a bit coming out next week. I mean, we had the US inflation numbers out this week. I must admit, I did not pay much attention to those. We had a bit of volatility, but not much of an impact on markets, I didn't think. I'm just looking at the number now. So US inflation yesterday, 3.4% for the year compared to 3.1% in November. So the market I was watching yesterday was the dollar index. That's the dollar index. There's the inflation number. Bit of volatility, but ultimately ended the day pretty much where it started the day. So looking at next week, we've got UK employment numbers on Tuesday. That might be interesting for the pound and UK gilts. Wednesday, we've got Chinese GDP. So how well or not is the Chinese economy doing? And then on Thursday, we've also got UK inflation on Wednesday. Sorry, that's probably the bigger one for next week. And then on Thursday, Japanese inflation data. So it's an inflation data focused week next week. I think inflation is still an important thing for markets, less important than 6 months ago. I think, we have seen inflation, obviously, that US inflation number yesterday coming in at 3.4%. It's still high, but of course nowhere near to the sort of numbers we were seeing a year ago. So I think there's bits there like that UK inflation data that could provide some volatility for next week. But nothing too dramatic, I don't think, on the economic calendar. As usual, a quick word from me as the sponsor. I do a trading course. I run one trading course that covers two approaches to trading, my approach that I use, medium-term trading and shorter-term trading. Lots of video content as part of the course, live webinars run by me. There's a WhatsApp group that's been running for, is it a year now? Maybe almost a year now, I think, in parallel with the trading course. That's a snapshot of my trading performance from November to the end of January last year with a £4,000 account. I did this to demonstrate the principles in the group. I talked about it a lot on the YouTube channel. I did the same thing again, May to July last year. £5,000 account this time round. Book profits were 3,116. So I'm overdue doing it again. So I'll do it again this year. But with the WhatsApp group, it used to be just for people who came on the course. I opened it up. I think it was the summer of last year. Opened it up. So the WhatsApp group, there's a daily update for me. Markets I'm looking at, markets I'm watching. Can't remember what I talked about this morning. I think, let's have a quick look. Hold on a second. So this morning's update was S&P NASDAQ, some of the big swings yesterday. FTSE I thought was interesting for today. What's that done? FTSE I thought was a buy this morning. So I sent the update out around about 11. So in there, I think the FTSE is interesting just from a daily trend point of view. You might look at that in a bit more detail. Dollar index, that 102 level I mentioned today. Swiss yen I thought was an interesting watch. Some of the stuff that we don't talk about in the WhatsApp on the live streams. I look at a few different markets. I thought that was interesting. Still is interesting for today. Bitcoin, because of the ETF thing yesterday, buy the rumour, sell the news is how that's turned out. We'll look at that in a bit more detail. And the final thing I mentioned in the WhatsApp group this morning was orange juice, because that had been such a massive trend. There you go, look at that. And has dropped, 30% since those highs in November, orange juice. I think that's a really interesting market going into next week. But anyway, so that's the WhatsApp group. So that's a snapshot of some of the stuff I talked about today. Markets I'm watching, trades I'm running, and any questions. If you want to try it, try a month subscription. It's always going to be charged for. It's never going to be free. But if you want to try it for a month, you get updates every day and any questions throughout the day. If you use the code YouTube, you can try it out and see what you think. Okay, that's it. So there's a snapshot of something from last year that I did. So to find out more, go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. The link should be in the description to this video. I'm going to do more stuff with another broker this year. Some people have signed up already. I've got a partnership with a different broker. I'm going to do lots more webinars. I'll talk more about those next week. I don't want to spend too long talking about all this stuff today, but you will see a different trading platform in that NASDAQ video I put out this week. So I am going to be shifting. I'm shifting it all away, but more about that as time goes on. So if you go to the website, you can find out more. Right, that's that. Okay, so let's have a look at what's been going on. Take a look at these markets. We did see, I don't know if I was saying, I'd said it in the WhatsApp group last Friday. I don't know if I said it on here last Friday. I wondered if we would see a turnaround this week in stock markets. We have had quite a sharp turnaround in stock markets. This is the S&P 500. It felt like, coming into the year, these markets had been under some pressure, and I wondered if we'd see sentiment turn. I must admit, I didn't expect to see sentiment turn so sharpish, but here we are. Yesterday in the S&P, there we go, we did see the market nudge to briefly new highs for the last couple of years, almost, I think. And the question for me on the S&P is, are we going to see the all-time highs from January 2022 broken? In my opinion, yes, we will, because the market is only, 20 points away at the moment. So there you go. We're not a million miles away from it as things stand at the moment. So these markets for me are still strong. I'd rather have had a sharper sell-off today. I mean, we're only a few minutes into today's trading. It could still happen, but these stock markets are still strong. NASDAQ, where's the NASDAQ trading? Let's have a look at that on the dailies. We've had new all-time highs on the NASDAQ anyway. I talked about the NASDAQ in that video earlier this week on the channel. So go back and have a look at that if you want to see what my views are in the short and medium term. I'm expecting more gains from the NASDAQ because the trend is up, So for me, I'm absolutely still a buyer of the dips in these markets, blah, blah, blah. That's it. There were plenty of people last summer, talking about when the strength was going to run out of steam in stock markets, and we've just blasted higher again since October. October, November, these markets have taken off. So I've started doing some more individual stock stuff this month. I talk about that in the WhatsApp group. I've got at the moment, I think I've got about 8 trades open at the moment on stocks that I've built up in the last couple of weeks. Let me show you some of the best performers at the moment. I think Boston Scientific, there you go. So I'm in that US stock. AIG has been selling off a bit, but I'm in that because of the trend. GE, General Electric, has been a good performer. BR, can't remember what they're called. Broadridge Financial. And Amazon I did that trade, I think just before Christmas. So back in here somewhere. So for me, I'm paying a bit more attention to US stocks today. This year, as well as everything else. I think it could be another interesting year for stocks. But looking at these big indices, that's the trend, isn't it? So what more can I say? The trend is still up. I still be a buyer of dips. I'd rather have a bigger dip to buy, but this is where we are at the moment for the S&P and the NASDAQ. The Russell 2000, the smaller cap, I've been surprised we haven't seen more of a bounce back from this. It had been stuck in this broad sideways range, bang, 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 since June 2022. Started breaking out of that after Christmas. Has pulled back. Been a bit scrappy, a bit tight trading over the last 4 days or so. But another interesting market to see if the smaller caps get pushed out again and we see some sort of follow through after this breakout. So that's interesting to me. The DAX has been a bit scrappy. I should have bought the DAX yesterday. I didn't do it because I was doing something else, whatever. But the DAX, is trading around the all-time highs. I think there was a nice little opportunity yesterday on this sell-off. The sell-off was perhaps a bit overdone, I thought. So if I'd have been paying attention about 5, 6 o'clock yesterday, that's when I would have bought it. I didn't buy it. I didn't want to chase it today. There's always next week. But perhaps a little bit scrappy over the last month or so on the DAX. I think if we see these US markets build up more strength, you'd expect to see the European markets follow as well. So interesting at the moment, but perhaps a bit sideways. The really interesting one has been the Nikkei. Breakout on the Nikkei. I think that's probably the more interesting stock market move of the year so far. So the Japanese market hit a high in June, so more than 6 months ago now, was really knocking its head against 34,000, and bang, away it goes. So for me, I want to buy the pullback here, but it's not pulling back so far. So, but I think it's going to be interesting to see where the pullback goes in the Nikkei. So let's see what happens. So stock markets, US markets still bullish. FTSE, the trend has been up since whenever, late October. I thought that was an interesting one for today. But Japanese, the 225, the Nikkei, big break. I think that is for the Nikkei because that had capped the highs for so long. So lots to watch when it comes to stocks next week. And like I say, I'm doing more on individual stocks at the moment. So that's that. Let's have a look at some currencies. Dollar index, I don't know. It's just, what would you do? I'd be tempted to be a buyer. In the short term, be a buyer. It's just a market that's been flat all this year so far. And we're only 12 days into the year. Perhaps interesting to see what happens this afternoon. Does this 102 level continue to hold? And that's it. I really don't have much to say about that. It's a market that I've traded a lot over the last probably 6 years or so. Not much compulsion to do a trade at the moment. You could argue, would you say that the trend in the dollar is still down from here? Perhaps just about. Or has it broken? Perhaps it has. Who knows? And in the short term, it's all a bit sideways. So there's not a lot of exciting stuff for me in the dollar index at the moment, which means if we look at stuff like the euro, for example, that's all been in a bit of a holding pattern as well over the last week or so. The trend for euro against the dollar is up, bang, 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 but not a lot of action over the last month. Pound against the dollar, we've had a good trend, not a good trend, an okay trend in the pound over the last week or so. But on the dailies again, we've got, we're trading pretty much where we were just before Christmas, a week before Christmas. So some decent volatility, blah, 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 but not much progress, really. And again, because it's this dollar index is hanging around, isn't it? What do you do? So that's why I like to look at different markets like Swiss yen and sterling yen as well. We'll take a look at sterling yen. Markets where we take the dollar out of the equation. Great trend in the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen over the years. Broke out again this week. It's pulled back a bit. I'd be looking to buy the dip whenever the dip stops dipping. So there are still some interesting FX markets out there for me from a trend point of view. If I take the dollar out, if you have a look at sterling yen, what does that look like? Yeah, the same. I think Swiss yen's maybe the better trade. Sterling yen's a bit stuck in the middle. So for me, Swiss yen is perhaps the more interesting market. So FX is a little bit up in the air for me because we do have this sideways dollar index going on. So until things get a bit more resolved there, not a lot exciting going on there for me. So that's that. Oil, I thought oil was interesting. We had that, clearly there's been military action overnight by US and UK in the Red Sea, on ships in the Red Sea, I think, or no, attacking the people attacking the ships in the Red Sea. Anyway, of course, we know military action in that area of the world, can have an impact on the oil price. I think that did help lift oil higher overnight. But again, it's a bit of an odd market. I think, the trend for the last week in oil has been up. So I'd be a buyer of a dip in the short term. But if you look at the bigger picture, for oil, going back to those September highs around $95. The trend is down. So I think, again, we've got a couple of conflicting trends there. It needs to make its mind up. In the short term, I'd be a buyer. Next week, if we start pushing up near 76, these old highs from sort of Christmas time, do we see the sellers come back out again and the big downtrend resumes? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what happens. So again, a little bit on the fence for oil. What has been a great trend is the old favourite, natural gas. The Widowmaker is back. So, and that pullback has been quite handy. I think, again, there's a few people in the WhatsApp group who've been in on that. Pretty volatile week for natural gas. I mean, where did we start the week? The lows for the week, 273. The highs for the week, 344. So what's that? 70-point range, which is about 30%. So a 30% range for natural gas this week. On the dailies, I think it's interesting up here. Let's plonk some levels on. Are we going to see, is this the breakout through the old highs from October? And away we go again. It did break out last time round and then ended up dumping back to a, 6-month low? But we've recovered off that again. Natural gas is up, 50% since the 13th of December. It's been a great trend on the hourlies. There we go. Lovely trend on the hourlies, natural gas. Very textbook, bang, 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 on the way up. Then it's accelerated since last Wednesday. But still a really strong market. Lots of volatility. But the trend is up. So for me, I'd absolutely be a buyer of dips. So for me, the trend on natural gas, a bit clearer than the one on oil at the moment. But interesting to see what happens up here, because we are... So yesterday, or early in the week, it traded to its best levels since about Jan 23. So almost a 1-year high on natural gas this week. Let's see. Let's see what happens. But for me, I'd be a buyer of a dip. And it's only if it starts to lose sort of 270, does it start to look as if perhaps the trend is over on natural gas. So as ever, a really interesting market to watch. What are people doing? Do we think that most people are going to be going short natural gas? I don't know, because historically, the average retail trader is always the wrong way around on natural gas. So I'm trying to see if there's a broker who's got a sentiment indicator. Hang on a second, let's have a look. Oh no, actually no. So I'm looking on a popular UK broker. 79% of clients are long on this market. Oh, that's UK natural gas. Okay, maybe it's not that popular a market. Let's have a look at US natural gas. Oh, I can't find it. All right, let's forget that. But the trend clearly up on the price of natural gas. So let's see how that goes. So that's it really. That's a clear one. Look at gold. Let's take a look at gold and silver. Again, with this US dollar hanging around, we've had a bit of sideways in gold, although we have seen a very good move over the last 24 hours or so. I think it's another tricky market at the moment. For me anyway. It did break out last year. We had that move last year to all-time highs, very briefly again, sells off, and we're there. We're above $2,000 an ounce. I'd probably rather be a buyer than a seller, based on the trend since October. So that's where I would be. I've not paid that much attention to it over the last week because it's all been a bit scrappy. We had the sell-off on the inflation data yesterday. We've had the subsequent bounce back today. So it's sideways with lots of volatility. No real clear trend. If we look at the last month or so, that's what it looks like. We've been to the bottom of the range, around about $2,015 an ounce. So it was maybe a fair enough trade down there, but not too much for me at the moment on that. Let's see. Silver, I did look at that. I thought that was interesting. If you take a look at silver, this is on the daily chart. I mean, that trend has struggled now. But I suppose, again, it's interesting, a bit like gold, a bit boring over the last week. But yesterday we did punch back to about 22.48. The lows from mid-December were 22.50. We've seen this market bounce again. So maybe we get a bit of strength up to 24 or so from silver. But again, if you look at the last, 10 months, lots of volatility, but pretty sideways overall. Okay, so nothing too exciting for me in that one. We should look at Bitcoin because we had the event that the hodlers have been waiting for. It was yesterday, of course, when the SEC, the US, regulator, approved some Bitcoin ETFs based on the spot price of Bitcoin. And I don't know if I'd said a couple of weeks ago, do we see an element of buy the rumor, sell the news? And yes, is the quick answer. On the announcement, the price spikes up to its best level in about 22 months, something like that. But since then, it's sold off. So definitely I'm sure there are plenty of naive traders out there thinking, oh, this is great. Bitcoin ETFs have been approved. There's only one way the price is going to go now. And of course, that hasn't been the case. So I ended up buying in at 48, and here we are at 45.5. I still think it's a buy. We've been looking at it all last year, Bitcoin. The trend is absolutely still up. But, we've had a good run up, a really good run up over the last few months. Perhaps some of that, I guess, was down to anticipation of what happens with these ETFs. We've had the ETF news. That's it now. So for me, it'd be interesting to see where it settles over the next couple of days. But I would be a buyer of the dip. I just like a decent dip, to be honest. Perhaps if we see it trading back down near 40,000, that looks a bit more interesting from a short-term point of view. But, we shouldn't be too surprised. I'm sure there's lots of conspiracy theories why the price of Bitcoin hasn't taken off after these ETFs getting approved. But, if you've watched markets for any time, we know that stuff gets factored into the price. And if the expectation was it was going to get approved, then bang, it was factored into the price. How much higher is the thing going to go? Bitcoin had risen from 30 to 30,000 back in October. So it's still more than 50% higher over the last 3 months. I think it would have been a naive view by some to expect the thing to rocket higher on this news, because I think we have been seeing it climbing on that. But interesting to see where it settles down when the dust settles a bit. So let's see. But I'd still be a buyer. I just wouldn't be a buyer today of Bitcoin. So that's that. A few other little bits and pieces. Again, these are ones that mainly come up in the WhatsApp group. Palladium, I think, is interesting. This massive downtrend in Palladium has been going on this chart here since October 22. And we've had this relentless sell-off since before Christmas, but we've seen a bit of stability come in. So if I wanted to buy Palladium, for me, now's the time to buy it, because I'm going to put a stop loss underneath the old lows, whatever those are, 927.5. Because is this the retest? Are we finally seeing the weakness in Palladium stop, and we're going to see something of a recovery from here? Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at the same time here, which is never a good idea. Are we going to see something of a recovery? If we are, then this is the place. So I do think it's interesting down here to see if the old lows hold down at, let's call it 925 for that. Let me just see. I'm just trying to see if I can log in to my other trading account and see if we can get a trade on Palladium. That could be the trade to do. I think it's an interesting market to take a look at. I can't remember my password. I'll sort that out later. Okay, so let's see. Let's see what happens down here in Palladium. And like I mentioned, orange juice on the daily charts, a great trend since at least July 2022. It's cratered over the last couple of months. 300, I thought, was an interesting level on orange juice to see where things turn around. So a few bits and pieces there. So interesting stuff for me to watch. Absolutely stock markets, because they're still strong. That's still a big focus for me. Stock markets. The Nikkei, because it's broken out to the Japanese index, because we've had this breakout. That's interesting. Dollar index is just boring to me at the moment, so that means a lot of FX markets are boring. Swiss yen, I think, is interesting because we take the dollar out and we have had this big trend up in Swiss yen. And Bitcoin, just to see where it all settles down after this ETF news. So quite a bit to keep an eye on. We'll take a look at some of the stuff you aren't looking at in a sec. But quick reminder, to find out more about the trading course I do, the WhatsApp group, if you want to join that, go to the website, David Jones Trading. and you can have a look at all of that. But for now, let's have a look at some of the stuff you want looking at. So the first one was Richard with some ever useful advice. Monday is Martin Luther King Day in the US. US closed, other markets might have different hours. Thank you very much for that. So Monday is closed for US stocks. Can we ever take a look at Marks and Spencer's? Yeah, Marks and Spencer's, the UK retail. They have had a bit of a resurgence, haven't they? Quite a resurgence. Oh, actually. And then they've been clobbered. What happened there? Did they have results out this week? Oh, actually, the trend is still up though, isn't it? So where are we with Marks and Spencer's? So October 22, less than £1 a share. And here we are now at 264. Perhaps no surprise, I'm going to say I will buy the dip on M&S. Absolutely buy the dip. What happened with Marks and Spencer's this week then? Marks and Spencer's Christmas sales. Oh, that was it. Okay, so they came out, I'm presuming, with their Christmas sales data, like all the retailers do. And for some reason, the market was not happy with that. Tesco and M&S report strong Christmas sales. The headlines all seem positive. Okay, M&S warned of an uncertain outlook for the coming year. There we go. The devil is always in the details, isn't it? But overall, great trend in the nation's underwear retailer. So for me, I buy the dip. I wouldn't buy it today. I'd wait for the dip to stop dipping. But I'd be a buyer, and I think I would probably go 240 for a stop, something like that. So somewhere around there. But yeah, what a great run that one's had. And for me, yeah, I think the trend is still up, so I'd still happily buy the dip in M&S. How do you protect yourself against brokerage failure? Well, in the UK, I don't know where you are, what part of the world you're in, but in the UK, you are covered for the first 70,000, the bank guarantee that we all have in the UK if we're with a regulated entity. So yeah, you're covered up to a certain amount in the UK. Other parts of the world might have similar schemes in place. I never know if it's 70 or 80. Is it 85,000 I've got in my head now? Hang on. I'm going to have to Google it. But there is an amount you're covered with. And again, if you have more than that, just be careful. 85,000, that's it. It's the FSCS, the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. So yeah, but again, just make sure you're trading with a reputable broker. It's there's a lot of, what's the right phrase for it? I was going to say filthy brokers. There's a lot of brokers, that are regulated in, outer Azerbaijan that I wouldn't trade with, But I think if you're, for me, if it's a broker who's at least got a base in the UK and some UK regulation, then I think, yeah, I'm normally happy with that. Do you think there'll be a secondary inflation wave? First indication of it yesterday in the US. What do you think? I don't know is the answer to that one. Could be, couldn't there? There is talk of that it's we could have that. I don't, again, you know me, I don't really overthink it. I thought the first load of inflation was interesting because we had clearly runaway commodity prices. I might have talked about it perhaps 18 months, 2 years ago. And I thought this could end up being much worse than people think it is. I don't really have an opinion on the next wave of inflation, to be honest. Just wait and see. I think with all this stuff, if you've watched a lot of these things now, you'll know I don't really overthink stuff. I just want to trade what's in front of me. And if the market starts getting worried about inflation, we'll see it in the market reaction. So yeah, I don't know. With a higher than expected CPI number this week, the markets are still pricing in 7 rate cuts this year. Do you think if the Fed won't cut the rates in March, the market will dip? Again, don't know, don't really care. So is there really 7 rate cuts expected this year? Again, we can overthink this stuff, and I'm going to say I don't care. I think if we go back to the summer, there were lots of people, and quite a few messages off people, doing a bit of navel gazing about stock markets, thinking, oh, stock markets are going too far. Where can I go short? Blah blah blah, going too high, and we know what they've done. They've carried on higher. I don't know. So I I'm interested in this stuff as somebody who follows markets and the economies around the world, but I don't use it. And so I'm always interested to read about it and hear people's opinions on it, but I don't use it to decide whether or not I'm going to trade. So I don't overthink it. I'd much rather be looking at second-hand car prices on Auto Trader that I'm never going to buy as the crash in the second-hand car market continues. So yeah, I'm more worried about that than rate cuts. Bearish divergence on Bitcoin. Is there bearish divergence on Bitcoin? On the dailies, are we saying? Let's have a look. Oh yeah, there is, isn't there? Fair enough. It's been quite a bit though on the way up, actually. So if we have a look at this, so bearish divergence, this is like a 10-day RSI. So the market's gone up, up and up here, and here actually, ba-bang, ba-bang, ba-bang. But the RSI, the old squiggle down here, I don't mean to be dismissive when I say I don't care about this stuff, so don't take it the wrong way. You know, hopefully you know I'm not having a pop at you for answering the question, asking the question. I just don't care about it. So yeah, there we go. So the market's going up, up, up. The RSI is going down, down, down. So quite a bit of bearish divergence on that. So some people would view that as the sign, definitely, that the momentum is running out of steam in Bitcoin. Let's see. I think it would be interesting. You know, if it got knocked back to 28,000, can you imagine that? Go on some Bitcoin forum and say your target for Bitcoin is 28,000. The abuse that you get. But that's only where the market was in October. You know, so perhaps if a lot of this fluff because of the ETFs comes out of the market, we could see a decent correction in Bitcoin. Who knows? But yeah, interesting with that RSI divergence. If we do see the price under a bit of pressure, let's say at 28,000, that's the target for Bitcoin. You just buy loads there. So that's that. MS Microsoft. I was looking at those just at lunchtime today. Actually, Microsoft fresh all-time highs, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there we go. I was clearly looking at them back then as well, 2019. And there's that, I've drawn the line, COVID correction. Where were they COVID? 140 and they're 385 today. So I would buy it. I would buy Microsoft. It's quite interesting. I mean, the trend has clearly been up on Microsoft, since years, if you go all the way back. But, you know, this bit of the trend has been up for a year. Broke out in November through the old all-time high. I think that is. Yeah. Through the old all-time high. Has faffed around a bit, a little bit sideways, and breaking out again. So for me, I'd be a buyer. The only question is, would I buy now at 385 or do I wait for a dip and buy? So for me, I'd be a buyer. The closest I would have my stop would be the other side of this old sideways doodah range. So this side of 362, something like that. But yeah, I'd buy the dip. How are my other stocks doing on that? So we do have some trades running. I finally came out of the, what was it called? Can't even remember. CrowdStrike last week. So the current big winner is Coca-Cola. But that Dell trade has done well from the other week, whenever that was. So there's a few in there doing okay that we did on the live streams. General Electric doing all right. And then the trades, let's see how the stock trades I've got are going now the market's open properly. Boston Scientific, I bought that one this week. That was a breakout trade with the trend, blah, blah, blah. That's done well. COP, that's not done well at all. I bought that one because of the trends. I thought ConocoPhillips might have a bit of a recovery. That's been a bit slower. GE, General Electric, was another breakout trade for me. AIG, I'm in that breakout trade. Slightly underwater on that. Broadridge, Amazon, what are they doing? And blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's take a look back at the stuff you want to look at again. But that Microsoft, I think, for me, is a buy. It's just a question of when would I buy it. Do I just jump in today with a stop at 360? Or do I wait for a pullback and see what happens? So that's that. That's it then. Is there no more questions? Oh, hang on. No, 85K. What's 85K? Don't know. 7 or 8 cuts. They're saying 3. I thought they said 3 as well for this year. And maybe they scaled it down to 2. But again, with all this stuff, don't overthink it. You know, just trade what's there in front of you. And I think that's it. If there's no more questions. So it's been, for me, it's been a bit of an uneventful week. I haven't done any short-term trades this week. I've been doing some of these equity trades. I would like to buy the S&P and the Nasdaq if they sell off a little bit. So I'd like to buy those. The dollar index needs to make its mind up. Hasn't done so far this year. So I'm a little bit not really interested in FX pairs that involve the dollar. Swiss yen is interesting because the trend is up. Bitcoin is interesting because we've had the big news. What happens next? And orange juice is interesting because the big trend has been up and we're back down near or slightly through that big trend. So there's a lot of stuff, and it's not that often I have weeks like this, but there's a lot of stuff where I think, oh, I'll watch it for a bit and see what happens and not actually do anything. But that has definitely been one of those weeks for me. So I've focused more on the individual stock stuff, which is a much slower way of trading for me. I talked about it in the WhatsApp group, but I'm going to do more with stocks this year. And my target is really to do at least one stock trade a day from a more medium term point of view. So potentially 20 trades a month on individual shares. US shares is what I'm focusing on, and just try and build up a bit of a mix of longs and shorts and run it for months, hopefully, see how it works. So that's my little trading project for 2024 with real money. So I'll talk a bit more about US stocks in these things. But for a short-term point of view, not a lot for me really this week. But I think it's interesting with these stock markets where they are. So let's see what happens next week. Boeing, definitely ready to go long. Oh, Boeing, that is interesting because, of course, we had that door, didn't we? We saw that door or window. Oh, I don't know, though. That window get ripped off, that plane. Was it the Alaskan Airlines plane or something, wasn't it? And we saw the Boeing share price whenever the market opened. Was it Monday? Yeah, so it happened over the weekend. Boeing shares closed on Friday near 250, opened at 230 or whatever on Monday. And I thought, I wonder if this is an opportunity. If it has the market overreacted, although overreacting to a window blowing out, you know, that's a pretty big event, isn't it? I wonder if it's still weak though. I wonder if this is an opportunity, but for me, it's not an opportunity yet because the Boeing share price is still dropping. It is all a bit sideways, isn't it, over the last couple of years or so? But let's see. I've done well on these market overreactions. That big Dell winner was back in here on earnings, wasn't it? It bought Dell, and that's done really well, that trade on the earnings shock. Boeing, the market is still being a little bit gloomy, I think. So I wouldn't really, personally for me, I wouldn't be a buyer just yet on the old Boeing. Global X Uranium ETF has gapped up 6.5%. URA, let's have a look. URA, Global X. We look at this a bit, don't we? Oh, nice one. If I was in that, I would just, so if I was in it already, I'd definitely have an eye on the old highs up around, 31.60. I presume this is in dollars, isn't it? But it's interesting if it breaks out though. Well, hey, we could be off to the races again. Let's see. Let's see what happens. I wonder why that gapped up. Who knows? But interesting one. Let's come back to it next week. So yeah, if you're on next week, if you remind us next week, we'll have a look at it again. But I would just be wary that, okay, we're back at the level where last time round it ran out of steam. So I would just be, if I was in it, I'd have a tight trailing stop personally, just in case if the thing does reverse, I'm going to come out. But if it does sell off, if it does carry on higher, then I'm still in the trade. So it's an interesting one, that. Let's come back to it next week. Can we look at Texas Instruments? Texas, TI. Texas Instruments Incorporated. I don't know on that one, I don't know. I think it's a bit sideways for me. I would go short. There you go. I'll take the other side of your trade there. I think I'd go short if I did anything. But it's a bit sideways overall, isn't it? Well, it is for me anyway. I'd be short with a stop above 171.5. So that's what I would do. So, but it's a little bit too sideways. But let's see. Hang on. What's the hourlies look like? On the hourlies, I could see it on the hourlies actually. On the hourlies, the trend is up, isn't it? So from a short-term trade, it looks interesting. Oh, I can't draw the trend line properly. So the trend is still up there, I guess, just about. So if I was a buy, if I had to buy them now, I would be 160. So I buy them at 165.10, and I don't know, a stop at 160. But just the more on individual shares, I always look at the dailies and not the hourlies. And for me, it looks like falls off a cliff, has a bounce, bang, back down we go. But I don't know. It's all a bit sideways, that one. Let's see. But good luck with it, whatever happens. Shop is still kicking it. Shopify. Did I have a trade on Shopify? I can't remember. Oh, yeah. So I bought 13. When did I buy those? Can't remember. Let's have a look. So I do remember buying them on a thingy. So where did you buy them? In here somewhere. Must have been just before Christmas. Bought Shopify. Okay, so let's have a look at those. Bought. Oh yeah, they had a little bit of a quite the wobble, didn't they? I'd have been better off being patient on that one. But yeah, comes back down, holds above the support, and bang, off we go. That looks positive to me. So if I wasn't in, I would be a buyer as well again. So if I was a buyer now, probably the closest I would have my stop is the other side of $70, and the thing is trading at 82, 83 at the moment. So that's what I would do with that one. But that does look positive, doesn't it? The last couple of days, happy days. Let's see how that one works out. So if that's it, we will wrap things up. What time is it? We'll wrap things up. So go to the website to find out more about the WhatsApp group, the trading course, all of that stuff. If you want to find out the broker that I'm going to start talking about more next week, if you want to sign up with them, there's a link, I think, in the description to this video. I can do lots more webinars and stuff with clients who sign up from that. Otherwise, let's see. Stock market's still strong. Let's see what happens with those next week. I would not, at the moment, be betting against the strength here in stock markets. If you're not subscribed, click on subscribe. If you can click the thumbs up to help the YouTube algorithm, however that works. And we'll do it again next Friday. We'll see where we are with these markets next Friday. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Good luck with your trading, and see you next week.